my name is Michael Tasner, and I'm the CEO and founder of No Joke Marketing for Childcare Centers. So we work with childcare centers, preschools, daycares, Montessori schools, nonprofits, all different types of childcare centers throughout the US and a few internationally to help them grow enrollments. So this is video 6 in a series of 6 videos. And the last 5 videos, I've talked about different ways to grow enrollment by leveraging paid traffic and some other offline sources, how to develop personas, how to start and execute a campaign, and some of the things to really watch out for. In this video, I'm just going to share some relatively blunt topics about some of the mistakes that I really see centers making, and then an actionable step of, how do you really watch out for and or correct that mistake? And the mistakes are obviously around marketing. So the biggest mistake that I see is they don't have a system for lead handling and lead nurturing. So they're getting phone calls on a regular basis of people interested, they're getting emails, they're getting web forms, but then things kind of get a little bit messy. So here are a couple of tips to kind of help fix that particular challenge. So the first thing is you need one person that is, I like to say, the DRI, the directly responsible individual for following up with all of your leads and handling those leads. So one person has to be responsible. The second piece, in the last video I talked about having an automated marketing system to nurture the leads. You need something like that, even if it's the most basic of versions where it's the lead comes in and you send some emails. That's the most basic, but you need something to help that particular lead handler. And then finally, you need to have some checks and balances so that you can really be checking this stuff. We like to use Google Sheets, for example. We're tracking all the leads in real time, so we actually hold the centers accountable. Hey, this lead came in, that lead came in. What's the status? What's the status? Because these are people that raise their hand. Now, again, they may not be ready to take a tour tomorrow, but they went through the process of putting in their information. So clearly, they're somewhat interested. Second mistake I see being made on a regular basis is how you're handling phone calls. So I suggest that you either set up a different phone number or a different way to track people that are interested in enrolling versus the day-to-day parents that are already enrolled. So you don't want to call it a sales line, but maybe an enrollment hotline or something like that. And you want to use a tool to kind of track the calls that are coming in to see where they're coming from and make sure that that line then instantly forwards over to the person that is responsible that you identified in the first challenge of who's that one person that's responsible. You want to make sure those leads are going right to that person. Often I listen to voicemails and recordings and things like that, and it's not just the lead handling process, but it's these phone calls. They're going to the wrong person, then they're asking questions on the spot, and it just isn't necessarily working effectively. So you really want to make sure you've got a kind of an enrollment line set up. Third mistake or challenge I see centers making on a regular basis is really not knowing the numbers. So marketing to me is just a math equation. It's how much more capacity do you have for enrollments? What's the average lifetime value of an enrollment? So are they going to stay a year, 6 months, 3 months, 5 years? What is or 4 years? What's the average length of time that they're staying? So you can back into some of those numbers because you really want to look for how much can you afford to invest to acquire a new enrollment. That's the number that I'm most interested in. So let's say that you tell me that on average, your monthly tuition, I'm going up to monthly to keep the math simple, is $800 a month, and they're there typically for 2 years in a row, and you start to average things out. And let's just round the numbers and say, you tell me that the average lifetime value of an enrollment is $20,000. So let's say they're going for 10 months each year for 2 years. So $20,000. I need you to back into, if your enrollments are down and you're never hitting your capacity, if you're telling me that your lifetime value is $20,000, how much are you willing to afford to invest to get that new enrollment? Centers there's $100, for example. What kind of marketing return is that? You invest $100 and someone gives you $20,000? I would play those odds all day long if I could, but it doesn't work like that. So most centers, almost every center that we've ever worked with, is underspending on their marketing, because they really just still have it in their head that it's a marketing expense and not an investment. And they get so used to trugging along certain enrollment numbers, but they forget that, well, they've got capacity for 20, 30, 40, 100 more if they've got multiple locations. That could equate to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year that you're leaving on the table. So you've got to understand the math of enrollments and lead costs and all of that good stuff to really back into your math. And the fourth mistake or challenge that I'm going to share in this particular video is they assume that things are either going to continue or be very similar to last year. The reason why that's dangerous is that things are constantly changing. There's new centers opening up, there's centers changing pricing and offerings and things like that. We've got a lot of centers that say, well, our word of mouth fills our center usually within a couple of people. Well, what if a couple of the parents were the ones that were driving all of those new enrollments and you never knew that? And then they move on and their son or daughter is no longer at your center, and then your word of mouth drops. So you've got to make sure you're using what I like to call multiple streams of traffic to get those enrollments to your center. Paid traffic, offline marketing, word of mouth, events, flyers. I mean, all different ways to drive enrollments. Now, obviously, we favor paid traffic because it's the quickest. And often that can get you to the point where you've got a waiting list. So if you're not doing paid traffic, you've got to have other sources in addition that are going to make up that difference for you. So you've got to leverage multiple ways to drive those phone calls and those leads, and never assume that because you did X last year that it's going to repeat this year. I want every center that we work with to have a waiting list. So after watching these last 6 videos, you're probably thinking, holy cow, there's a lot of stuff to this. And while I gave you a lot of the details, I mean, there's also a lot of other things and little intricate details as well. But that's where we come in. Chances are you didn't go to school for marketing. A lot of the centers and owners that we work with, they were in early childhood education, for example. And we work with over 150 centers across the US and a few internationally. And they've got as low as 40 enrollments to as high as thousands of enrollments across multiple locations. And we focus on exactly deploying the system that I just walked you through. Paid traffic to landing pages, we put in the email sequences and the nurture sequences and all of that good stuff so that you can focus on what you do best. If you'd like to have a conversation, click on the link. You can schedule to my calendar in real time. There's absolutely no cost. It's just a casual conversation. I hope you've enjoyed the series of videos. I look forward to talking to you on the phone. Have a great rest of your day. Keep doing amazing work. Talk to you soon.